The NBA Draft Reaction Podcast. We're coming to you live. I think the draft is at about pick 50 now, but the Thunder have made their 4 selections for the night. And so we are now back with you guys live, breaking down everything that happened in the NBA and with the OKC Thunder this evening. I'm your host, Jacob Niffen. Got Taylor Peterson with me.
What a night, gentlemen. What a night.
We've got JD Silva.
To Jalen Williams. They said it couldn't be done.
Kami Marabian is here.
Hey, I'm just chilling.
We've got Justin Peabody.
Hello, everybody.
And last, but certainly not least, Nick Crane.
Still shook because I thought we had Jabari in the bag for about 6 seconds.
Thanks, Chris Haynes.
Just long enough for you to delete your Chet story.
Sad stuff.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a day. We just did a 3.5 hour long live stream.
Woo!
We saw a roller coaster of things happen throughout the first round. The Thunder somehow come out of this draft with 4 players, 3 in the top 12. Just an overall kind of insane night. So this podcast is really just designed to be our immediate draft reactions, to really just talk about how tonight went, how we felt. We've got all summer to see what these guys look like in the gym and 2 summer leagues to break down what the fit looks like, all of that. So we're not going to dive too deep into that tonight, but God, there's so much to talk about. And so let's start logically at the very tippy top of the draft, where about 15 minutes before the draft starts, we get a very, very interesting Adrian Wojnarowski tweet that says, hey, you know how we've been telling you it's Jabari Smith Jr. at number 1 to Orlando for the past month? Hold on a second. And we all thought, oh, this is a move. They're trying to get Houston to trade up. Houston's bought in on Paulo. They're not going to pass on Jabari. Yada, yada, yada. Woj tweets 2 more times. And then we get on the actual clock, and it is Paulo Banchero, number 1 overall to the Orlando Magic. So, initial thoughts just on the crazy shakeup at the top, guys.
I mean, we kept hearing over and over, right, that the 2 big, not mysteries, that would be the wrong term there, but like that Orlando at pick 1 and OKC at pick 2 are 2 very secretive franchises that play everything very close to the vest. And, you know, there's no telling what could happen. However, the consensus was that, you know, Orlando would pick Jabari at 1 and OKC probably takes Chet at 2, but like Paulo's a potential, you know, it has a opportunity to be drafted there. Whatever. Banchero doesn't even go to his draft workout that he has scheduled on Monday. Apparently, he has a Zoom meeting with them on Wednesday, and they end up taking him. And I think my reaction to you all on the live stream, it was Justin and us were at that point, and I think I told you all, like, what a fantastic job by the Orlando front office. I thought it was smokescreen at the very end, utilizing it at the perfect time to try and get Houston to move up. And I said, if I were Houston, I wouldn't take the bait. I would see if Orlando would just do it, and they did. And I think it was the right choice. Just think it was a great move by Orlando to keep that so close to the vest until the very end. Just applause to Orlando, I think, is my initial reaction.
The fact that you got Woj spinning around that's a success story, right? Like usually you can trust what he says. The betting markets went crazy last night and this morning as soon as
they've
Woj
been
kind of put out
wonky for like 5 days, right?
Yeah. And then Woj puts out a nothing to see here tweet and they pull it off the board at most places.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, like right before the draft, you get that, well, actually, this may not be settled. Shout out to guys like, Sam Vecini, who really said he didn't think it was as settled as everybody else thought it was. He wrote all the way up until the draft of like, I think there's still a chance it's not Jabari. So it wasn't everybody that was calling it that, but there was definitely a lot of smoke there. And the fact that he didn't work out for them is the part that gets me. Like, I expected to hear once they picked him, like, oh, they had a secret workout for him, but that wasn't the case. And that's wild to me that they didn't even bring him in to watch him in person. That something must have clicked that made them feel that confident to make the pick.
Because of comments like that from Vicini and other people saying that, hey, it's not 100% that they're taking Jabari. My assumption was that if they're going to take someone else, it's going to be Chet the whole time. And then I guess that must have been one hell of a Zoom meeting, or maybe they had a private workout. Maybe they've had a private workout that just no one knows about.
What was the Woj tweet? The Clippers bringing in Blake Griffin. Tears were shed.
Yes.
I don't know. That's what happened in that Zoom meeting with Banchero.
They photoshopped him on the Mount Rushmore, comparing to Martin Luther King. It was glorious.
It's just incredible, like, because I mean, there was so much information out there. You had so many people saying, "Well, Banchero could go number one realistically," and everybody's like, "No, it's like that, like maybe, but definitely not likely." It's most likely because like everybody, like so many people and people that you trust with check marks, right? They were saying no, like it's gonna be Jabari. And then OKC's pretty locked in. Like Sam Presti wants Chet. So unless, Orlando chooses Chet, OKC will have to go a different way. But it's been pretty clear that Chet was definitely like OKC's guy from the get-go. And then Houston was going to get what was left over, right? Between Ivy and one of the other two. And it's just so interesting that last second it was, Banchero is officially number one, and OKC already knew what they were going to get. They fell right into line, and Houston finds themselves with Jabari Smith Jr. now instead of kind of a more like really big playmaker guy. But Jabari Smith makes them obviously better, and they're going to continue to be bad and get even better, just like OKC.
I think the most interesting thing to me was tonight made two things clear. One, Chet Holmgren was number one on Sam Presti's board, but he was number 3 on both Houston and Orlando's boards.
That's fascinating. Well, Nick,
Great point.
You mentioned Chet, so let's get straight into it with the number 2 overall pick. No surprises. The Thunder draft Chet Holmgren. I think not Fred Katz, Andy Katz, who covers the college basketball world, tweeted out something tonight that it has been kind of an open secret for months now that the Thunder were in love with Chet Holmgren. I believe Woj said on the broadcast tonight that if the Thunder landed pick 1, he thinks they would have taken Chet Holmgren. A lot of signs pointing to, I believe it was 2 nights ago, Woj on ESPN on their mock draft show said something to the extent of, I think Chet Holmgren has been the focus of Oklahoma City this entire time.
Said that tonight too.
It seems like Sam Presti got his guy. And we've talked about this for a long time, dating all the way back to like September of 2021, that Chet Holmgren was this archetype of player that really fit what Sam Presti and what this team is kind of building towards, which is length, versatility, IQ, passing acumen, toughness. I just want to get everybody's thoughts. How do we feel now that Chet is officially a member of the OKC Thunder? How do we again, we don't want to dive too deep into this because we could spend days on this topic, but how do we like the fit with the quote unquote core of Oklahoma City and Chet arguably being the crown jewel in Presti's ambitious rebuild?
I think the most interesting thing is this era of Thunder is so different. No, you had, instead of Steven Adams, who is this humongous, strong, traditional center, you have this skinny, modern 3-point shooting center. Instead of this electric, dunk on your head, super outgoing, jaw at the ref, Russell Westbrook. You have SGA, who's very methodical, plays below the rim, kind of level-headed. It's just a different feel, and that's not a bad thing, but it's just the prospects they're putting together, and this is kind of what happens when the NBA changes. But I think, to answer the question, I think it's refreshing to have. I know bigs in the modern NBA like don't get paid, and ultimately people are like nervous to give them big money. But I think Chet's a little bit different. Like he does a lot more than the DeAndre Aytons, and he's got the defensive upside of Rudy Gobert, but does a lot more offensively. He can stretch the floor. I'm just excited that Oklahoma City got a guy that can do literally everything.
Well, you said if he has the defensive upside of Rudy Gobert, which I think is like that's a high ceiling, but like if you can be Rudy Gobert with a jump shot, like that's terrifying. And that's I mean that's a realistic thing that he could be. I think people see the long skinny white guy and the lazy comparisons. Poku. If Poku's not on the Thunder, how do Thunder fans view Chet right now? I think it's probably very differently. Because
good point, Justin.
I think we're trying to fit him into a box, and the point is he doesn't fit in a box. He's way more physical than Poku probably will ever be. He's got a wider frame. He can bench press more than Kevin Durant did when Kevin Durant came into the league.
That's important.
And like Kevin Durant's not a scrub anymore. Like he's not scrawny. He's not getting pushed around. Like he can hold his own in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
And Chet's coming in ahead of where Kevin Durant was in the strength department. We'll obviously have to see how that translates on the court, but like the kid's got toughness. And if you think he's just going to be like another kind of skinny Bambi learning to run, you're going to be surprised.
Not him. He is hard nosed. I mean, give him hell 110% of the time. Yes. He's got that dog in him.
I'm so glad you said that.
He got that dog in him.
He got that dog in him.
That boy good.
I just think I think the pick is so interesting because obviously Presti knew what he wanted and knew what he had, and he obviously selected his guy early on. And I don't think it's a thing where he would just like was stuck with him as far as being a prospect. I think it was a guy that he was enamored with as far as saying, hey, he can take bigger guys. Obviously, they would have to be a bigger center or power forward. Take them off the dribble, give them a couple moves, and still finish with the other hand, going righty or lefty. That's pretty impressive because he was a guard growing up and just skyrocketed up as a human being, which is incredible. That would be like if I suddenly turned into Justin's height overnight. And go look at the picture of all of us with Perry Jones. It's pretty comical how Justin and Perry
raising the bar.
Perry are just like almost like the same height or whatever.
Jacob, and then goes like me, and then there's Comion.
Yeah, basically me and Taylor looked like short, like way shorter than a normal. Like we looked like hobbits in that picture.
Mike Wazowski over in the corner.
it wasn't great. but it's the thing is that he can do a lot of things for you offensively. He can pick and pop. He can take you off the dribble. He has a kind of a Dirk move. He would just have to like perfect it and get a little bit stronger. That's normal stuff, especially for a guy his size. He's going to be in a proper weight and conditioning and nutrition program now. A lot better than probably what Gonzaga had, despite the fact that Gonzaga was a private institution. They probably had the best stuff like that in the world, but maybe not the best training staff as a school. And then you have to consider, of course, like you guys just said, his defensive upside. Not only can he be an elite shot blocker, the guy has toughness. Yeah, he's got the dog in him, whatever. But he's going to get bigger. And he can hold his own in the paint. But not only that, his lateral quickness is second to none. He's pretty incredible laterally, and not just a guy that has to drop or hedge or too much. He can cover space pretty rapidly. And even when like other defenders or not defenders, ball handlers dive into his chest, he's able to keep his chest out and still swat with his hands down because his wingspan is so large or so long. It's wild. And that's what OKC's getting in that pick. And I'm really happy with it.
For what it's worth, Sam Vecini has been saying recently on podcasts and in his mock draft Chet Holmgren has the best defensive anticipation of any prospect he's ever scouted.
Yep. I was gonna admit. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I've never
Justin-
heard. I hadn't heard that.
Justin mentioned if he can become anything close to Rudy Gobert with a jump shot, you've got something special. Like Rudy Gobert's won Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, 4 times, right? I don't know if Chet ever gets to Defensive Player of the Year level, but I mean,
Vicini in that same blurb, Vicini mentions it.
Vicini, Gavoni, a lot of them say this is a potential Defensive Player of the Year guy. If you can get that level of a defensive anchor that has ball skills and a 3-point jumper and can play not as the screener but come off of pin downs, I'm very anxious to see what Chet's offense looks like, and I think we're going to get a glimpse of that at Summer League.
Yep.
Because I think Gonzaga put the training wheels on him, paired him with another big in all of his minutes.
Yep.
In Oklahoma City, they're going to play 5 out.
So that was the last thing I wanted to touch on because I think you all covered Chet pretty well as a prospect in college. But I think the thing that I keep going back to, and I mentioned this in the group chat I'm in with Warner West and Donnie Hazelwood, but like there's so much going on tonight. There's been so, and prior to tonight, we've been so like analytical mode, breaking down these prospects, even comparing this draft to last year's draft, that I don't think, at least like speaking for me personally, I've appreciated the Thunder getting the number 2 overall pick for starters and taking a prospect like Chet Holmgren. And what I mean by that is what Jacob was alluding to. I literally remember 3-4 years ago watching this kid in high school being like, oh my gosh, I hope the Thunder can get this kid because he is capable of so much more. I know, I think Silva, you mentioned on Wednesday's podcast last night, we were talking about the matchup that was on ESPN here a couple of years ago, where it was him and Amani Bates going head to head on ESPN in a high school matchup, right? And I think what we see there is a player who's much more versatile, like to Jacob's point that he showed, then he was able to show in Gonzaga. We're going to see a player who plays a lot more in transition. I've said this for 2 straight years, this Thunder team and what Presti's trying to build. And that was, again, enforced tonight with these different picks. They're at their best when they're pushing the floor in transition. Chet's going to be fantastic with that, being able to grab the ball and push it in transition, but also being able to run the floor in transition, vertical lob threat, vertical spacer, trailer from 3 in transition. And that's just one aspect of his game. Obviously, you guys touch on a lot of the other aspects. I'm just very excited. And again, just kind of in a nutshell, I just keep thinking back to like how fun he was to watch in high school, how excited I was to have him or to watch him as the prospect. And he's with OKC now. And I think we need to remember that when a lot of you guys mentioned, the Thunder have had their eye on him for a long time now.
Well, yeah, excited is what I keep going back to. The more and more we're all processing this together and how big of a moment this was as a Thunder fan, for the Thunder organization on its own, just getting a prospect that is so unique and that we have known about for so long, that has been so hyped. It feels the rebuild. It feels like the rebuild is coming to fruition. It's not over yet. We all know that, but we are. Last year, what I think we all can agree was the lowest that we will be, and it feels really good. I could not be more excited for next season, honestly, with all these guys we got and the direction the Thunder head. Just looking back, like, whenever I became a Thunder fan, this is going to age the hell out of me. I was
says the youngest guy on the podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? You see, mother.
Age me in reverse. Age me in reverse.
Like Benjamin.
When I was a baby watching Kevin Durant.
Yeah, literally. No, I got into the Thunder when I was like 14, 15, and James Harden was traded when I was 16. I remember being at my first job, closing up shop. James Harden gets traded. So like things have been very well established with the Thunder since then. And it's been, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of struggling, and it's just awesome to get another fresh prospect like Chet in the building, along with the other extremely talented guys that we have on the roster already. Could not be more excited. That's what I keep thinking about the more we talk about this.
Yep. We'll get on to some of these other guys that the Thunder drafted in just a moment. Before we do, I want to touch on the idea of trades, because we have talked ourselves to death about draft pick trades for the past month. A, after tonight, Lou Dort is still on this team.
That's a big deal.
For now.
B, after tonight, the Thunder still own the draft rights to Micic. Who would have guessed? Who knew that was going to happen?
Maybe less of a big
That's
deal.
mean.
The guy that's been flirting with coming over to get a better contract over in Europe for the past 5 years? Who maybe gets traded this summer and I look like a jackass right here. I don't care. I predicted, and it was me, Taylor, and Silva on the pod last night. We did some bold predictions. I predicted that this would be the year where instead of adding to the treasure trove of assets, this would be the year that the Thunder come out of the draft with less assets than they went in with. And they spent draft picks tonight, guys. How surprising, before we get into what draft picks they spent and what they spent them on, how surprised are you on like a level of 1 to 10 that Presti dipped into the war chest and spent some of the savings account to make a move?
0. We've literally said this entire time, and we've preached to the people on Twitter that keep saying, Presti loves picks. He'll trade Shea for 6 more. The reason you have picks is to get guys you love. Sam Presti clearly loves Dieng. He went and got him. Whether he's good or not, he got a guy that he loved. And that's why you have the stash of assets. And it's going to happen again, whether it's draft night or in a trade. It's going to happen again. And that's why you have them. And I think at first when we looked at it, we were like, oh man, they only have like 1, maybe 2 picks in 2023. Like, that's not very many. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's we've talked about it for so long. You're going to have to overpay for a guy you like, and they did it. You got to be okay with it. That's why you got him.
Yep. I think that's what was most enlightening is like we now kind of have our first look at the value of those picks. They've been hypothetical for years now. And like, how many picks would it take to package to move up to X? How many picks would it take to get this pick? How many picks would it take to go get this guy? This is our first peek at like what those picks are valued at. Mm-hmm. I think it's super fascinating. I think like you said, Nick, that's been the narrative of like, oh, the Thunder have so many picks. People aren't going to just take one because they know the Thunder have more. I think that's true to an extent, but I think it can be hyperbolized a little bit of like, oh, you know, if Sam Presti calls me, I'm going to make him give me 10 picks before I even pick up the phone. Like, I don't think it's going to get to that level, but like 3 picks could be a good haul for the Knicks. They're pretty heavily protected. Like from a Thunder perspective, I feel pretty good about what they did. They didn't give away their own pick. All the picks they gave away were heavily protected. They were acquired via other trades. I think that, you know, you go get the guy you want now and you let the Knicks kick the can down the road for whatever reason they want to do that. But this is what we're going to see more of. I think you're dead on, Nick. It's going to happen next year, probably going to happen the year after that. These picks are not going to last forever and they're not all going to convey. And somehow the Thunder still took 4 guys tonight. Like they're still going to bring guys in, but that's why their treasure trove is so ridiculous is they can bring a bunch of guys in and still be able to trade, you know, 3, 4, 5 draft picks, which is just bizarre.
We've kept on saying that the picks are currency in the NBA, and OKC, I mean, to like what you just said, Justin, like, or maybe it was Nick, whatever, Dieng, Presti really, really liked Dieng for some reason, and like, you take the currency you have, like, into your credit, like you just said. I mean, they are heavily protected from a lottery perspective. So like that would be that like for like multiple years in a row for some. And you own like OKC's last pick in the lottery is the 12th pick, which is a pretty okay pick to be to have, and you're getting a pretty good player. From that point on, from 1 to 12, OKC owns a quarter of the top 12 picks in the NBA draft. Of guys they've heavily scouted over the past year and a half or two. Like it's incredible to know that. And like Usman Dieng, he just got a lot better as the season went on. when in the NBL when he got a lot more playing time. Really love Jalen Williams from Santa Clara. I think he's like a really good playmaker. Really love his catch and shoot percentage. And of course I've already spoken my piece on Dieng. What made me really chuckle, actually, I was watching the ESPN feed for a little bit. What made me laugh was they had a comparison for Banchero. They had comparisons for Jaden Ivey, and they had a comparison for Jabari Smith Jr. And like I laughed. They're like, we don't really know what Poku, what Chet Holmgren is. Like, he's kind of a unicorn. They're like, he's a Kristaps, but he's, has a lot more abilities, but also kind of a baby Giannis. It was hilarious because like they didn't know. He, like you said, like he checked like earlier on the stream, like he checks all of these weird boxes, and he's such a unique prospect. So yeah, it's really interesting. So no, after that rant, I'm not surprised you used picks because you owned a quarter of the top 12 picks in the NBA draft.
I think what I told Jacob and Silva here earlier is like, I'm not surprised to, like you said, Kamier, that he used picks to trade up and maybe, depending on how you looked at it, overpaid for one of his guys. What shocks me is the fact that I thought he would do that to consolidate and move up in the draft.
Yeah.
Instead, we end up with 4 rookies, not 3, like the 3 picks that the OKC had. 4 rookies coming into this team, which is just fascinating.
Well,
and leads us into another conversation. Really,
and we thought that the picks, we thought it was a trade, 12 plus picks to get to 11.
Right.
We did.
I think that's pretty. That as time goes on, and we'll have all summer to talk about all this type of stuff. This is a really important piece, though, that I think we really have to dissect. This wasn't a trade to move up. Hey, we have something a little less valuable tonight. We're going to give you some future stuff and something less valuable to move up. They essentially just bought pick 11 from New York. And I think that's significant in a couple of areas.
Yep.
Number one, they identified that the Knicks were desperate. They want to clear cap space that bad for Jalen Brunson? Like, seriously? But 2, like we were talking, if they don't do Dort, what does it take? Like 12 and 2 firsts to go from 12 to 8? They just bought pick 11 for 3 protected firsts.
That's a great point. Yep.
And the smallest protection on any of those picks is lottery. Is 14. The other ones are 16 and 18.
Yeah. Now we have a price for a lottery pick now, right? Like that's what we just learned tonight.
Well, partially, yes. I mean, I don't think in every draft you can buy a lottery pick
100%
for 3 protected first.
For sure.
But Sam Presti continues this chain reaction where he identifies the team that is desperate and is willing to do something out of desperation and give up value. And he identified that in the Knicks and tonight, the past week, the past month. I don't know how long the Knicks have been contemplating this, but Presti identified it and then took advantage. Yep. I think we talked a lot on the show about how if Presti was going to make a move like that, like we talked a lot about if they moved back from 2 to 4, the only way it made any sense was if it was an absolute overpay and Presti fleeced Sacramento, because that's what he does. He identifies people, GMs, front offices, ownership, whatever, who are limited and who are desperate and who need to make a move. And then he twists that towel and he gets every last little drop out of it. I feel like that's what happened tonight at 11.
And we had a whole pod on this. And I've got homework for you, Jacob, to go back and figure out where we ranked these. But we did a entire pod on, I think it was a like it, love it, gotta have it in terms of where you would rank the Thunder's picks. I'd be curious what we ranked the 3 picks that Oklahoma City traded tonight, because I feel like we all probably said they were like it. Like they weren't in terms
that's
of
a great point, Nick.
In terms of the picks Oklahoma City has, those probably weren't. If we were ranked those, they weren't high.
Very good point.
You did not touch any of the Clippers picks. You did not touch any of the Rockets picks. You did not touch any of your own picks. I would say those are the most important assets the Thunder have moving forward.
Exactly. And then we talked about this too on the live stream. Jacob pointed this out. We were trying to piece everything together because all the different pieces of these different trades were all being tweeted out differently and separately. Where whatever the Knicks gave up basically to, what was that? In connection with the Duren trade. Regardless, that's what we were able to see.
Charlotte, Detroit, and New York.
It's madness. We were able to see that 2023 Denver first that OKC had.
Yeah, we kind of started putting the puzzle pieces together at that point.
So you had the Denver pick and the Washington pick. And so all that being said, now the Thunder end up with their own 2023 pick and the rights to swap for the better pick between their own pick and
the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
The way that all played out in real time felt so surreal for us during the show.
Madness.
Because we were all of us thought we were going to trade up for 8 or 7 or 6, something like that, and get Shaedon Sharp or Sohan or someone like that. And these names keep getting checked off. Sohan goes at 9, and then Johnny Davis goes at 10, and we're like, okay, who is left that we want? And it's like, okay, there's Usman, who I have not been a fan of. There's Jalen Duren, who several of us have not been a fan of, and then like AJ Griffin. So I was like, okay, who's it going to be? So Usman gets taken by the Knicks, and we scream.
Put our phones down again.
We put our phones down again.
And basically, Silva and I are chanting AJ.
Yeah, we're like, okay, it's AJ, easy. And then it's Jalen Williams, and we check our phones, and it's like the Thunder have acquired Usman Dieng, and we're like, no, they just traded it. They swapped. It was so unlikely the way they traded into that. None of us could have predicted that. I knew going into this draft that Presti would do things that none of us would expect him to do, and that's exactly what happened.
We did not spend much time on the podcast talking about Jalen Williams from Santa Clara or about Usman Dieng, and here we are.
Well, guys, we did Jalen Williams from Arkansas.
Yeah,
we did talk about Dieng early.
Yes, that is true. That is true. I'll give us that bone. Hey, before we continue and talk about Usman Dieng and the Jalen Williams squared, want to tell you guys first live here on the show about some new merch that we dropped tonight. So I'm going to let Justin take over that, and then we're going to tell you about the sponsors for tonight's show as well before we continue on.
We have 3 new shirts to celebrate the Thunder's newest draft pick in Chet Holmgren. Part of the perks of feeling like Chet to OKC was confirmed for a while is we had more time to make some merch. So go check it out, cottonbureau.com. Look us up, the Uncontested. The first one that you see here, Bet on Yourself, inspired by Chet's draft night attire. The chain with the dice and the 3-4, which he said he wore because he's betting on himself. Now you can bet on yourself. We also have the waving arm inflatable tube men. If you saw Jacob's tweet from months ago, I might add, comparing Poku and Chet to the wacky waving arm inflatable tube men, that the Action Network also tweeted something extremely similar tonight. I'll give them credit for pushing our merch, I guess. You can pick this up as well. And last but not least, if you're a fan of Long Boys, we got the Thin Towers. So get your nerd on. Celebrate the 2 towers, the Twin Towers, the Thin Towers on OKC. All available now on cottonbureau.com. So go check them out.
What's up, Thunder fans? This is Jacob from the Uncontested podcast, and I'm here to let you know that we have fully redesigned our merch store to get you the best Thunder swag available. Just visit cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested podcast to find all of our new designs. That's cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested podcast to find new drops like Josh Giddey's Wizard of Oz or an ode to the Trey Man step back. We've also got all the classics like Dortal Combat, Liu Tang Clan, and everyone's favorite MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The best part? You can get any design and the style of apparel you want. So if you're gearing up for the summer and want a tank top, needing a hoodie for the winter in Australia, or you're wanting a Pokemon onesie for your baby, we've got you covered. make sure to go to cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested podcast to get your new Thunder gear today. And we are back from that break. We will update our commercial there with all the Chet gear very soon. We've got a draft night was kind of the beginning for us guys.
I just want to know one thing. All right, this is a really important question. Like the most important question on this podcast. That's probably going to be asked tonight, right?
Wow.
I'm ready.
As I'm putting sauce on my Taco Bell.
Good for you.
Shout out Johnny Davis.
Wife came in clutch, homie. I got a Baja Blast up in this thing.
That's what Jaden Ivey calls his first step off the dribble, the Baja Blast.
I'm having a Baja Blast. Did Sam Presti's draft night deserve a high five? If you saw Sam Presti, my wife sees Sam Presti like once a week. Does he deserve a high five for this draft?
He does love some Flower Child, but oh man, yes, he does. He absolutely does. To your point, Kamiar, yes, like ranking this, I'm very pleased with his draft as a whole, but I'm also so confused that like I think I would just look at him and just be like, walk me through this.
I'd give him a butt smack personally.
Good game, coach.
I'd kiss him.
Whoa,
Wow,
hey.
You guys both went overboard.
Wow.
I was gonna say, would you give him a hell yeah and a high five? But then you guys just went straight.
Hell
for
yeah, brother.
You guys went straight for the
Hell
ass.
yeah, brother.
Nick, does he deserve a
Shemang
high five?
dang.
All right, so we talked a lot.
Nick didn't get to answer, did he?
Oh, Nick, go ahead. I'm sorry.
wow.
High five. Yes.
Very nice. High five.
We talked a
Terrible.
lot about the trade at 11. The Thunder basically just giving up protected picks to buy pick 11 from the Knicks. That pick, we've already mentioned, was Usman Dieng. My first question before we dive into Usman, and again, we're not going to spend a ton of time dissecting prospects. We are going to talk a little bit about him. We were all kind of low on Usman Dieng. I think that's fair.
Yep.
Yes.
They
No,
still-
not Nick. Nick's saying no.
Okay. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Nick.
In Nick we trust. He told us Josh Giddey had superstar potential. I will forever trust his take
Oh my
from
God.
now on.
What is this?
I would say the Usman Dieng trade happened around, 8 p.m.?
Feels like 10 years
Sure.
ago.
Time does not feel
I
real
mean,
at all. Don't ask me.
I think
that.
it's about
That
8
2 days
p.m.
ago.
It is now 11:45, so
Time
that
is
was
an illusion.
that
Is
was
it?
nearly 4 hours ago.
Oh my god.
I need to
was.
ask each of you, how much has your opinion on Usman Dieng changed in the past 4 hours? Now that he wears an Oklahoma City hat, have you said, oh, shit, he's got high potential? The ceiling has climbed. Where are you guys at?
How many YouTube videos deep are you? Depends. No, like, it's the same, right? I mean, like, yes, did his stats get better over the season as he was with the Breakers? Yes, because he played more. But does he have the physical tools to become a high upside defender that Sam Presti we all know loves, and what we've seen from the previous iterations of the Thunder? Yeah, he checks those boxes. So no, my opinion really hasn't changed. It's my opinion will change on whether or not he becomes a offensive weapon.
I mean, Kevin O'Connor has him comped to, shades of Brandon Ingram, so I'm all in. Next, Brandon Ingram here in OKC. I actually hate that comp. I typically love KOC shades of.
That is a wild
I
comp.
think that is not even close. He literally took Brandon Ingram, prime Chandler Parsons, Evan Turner, bunch
Hey,
of guys that fit the size.
Evan Turner fits. Evan Turner fits.
One that Usman
Ish.
himself mentioned on the, I believe it was whenever he was on with Shams
Yeah, stadium.
tonight
Yep.
on Stadium. He said he watched a lot of Portland era Nicholas Batum.
Yeah, I think that's.
The French connection, the length, the playmaking.
But remember, I think that's key. It's like don't think of the Batum. That's the key role player for the Clippers. Like think of the Portland.
Portland Batum could hoop, man.
Dude, and his
He can put
stats
the
in
floor.
fantasy were incredible.
Yeah,
This man
it's
almost
true.
did a triple-double.
That's true.
He
But
was
I think
wild.
that's key. Like what Congar mentioned is obviously the outside shot. Another, which is a little concerning. Another player that the outside shot needs to come along for him to really be able to unlock his full potential. But he's also another player that kind of seems like he needs the ball in his hands, and that concerns me a bit as well. But obviously the defensive versatility is huge. The playmaking is next level. Another one of those players, we keep talking about it over and over, who can grab the ball, you can rebound the ball off the rim, push it in transition, find others and create for others in transition. Like you can see what Presti is going for. It's just a matter of like, how do you develop all these players? Who's willing to sacrifice more, or who's willing to sacrifice at the right times for the betterment of the team? Can you get everybody to sacrifice?
I don't even know if you have to sacrifice, because like all of the things that we keep saying Presti is going for in this new era Thunder, like if you boil it down, it's this guy contributes without having to score the ball, and the ball have to be in his hands.
Yep.
Defense, passing, high IQ, does all the things. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I still don't know if they have their number one alpha dog scorer, but they've got a lot of guys that do things that they can impact the game without scoring. Like they're the anti-Palos basically.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like we always used to say, like the Thunder, the Carmelo, PG, Russ, there's only one ball. Like this is the opposite of that. Like we need somebody to step up and shoot the ball.
True.
Is that where you cash in all those picks in a player or two, Nick, to get that?
Maybe. I mean, if you can get a legit number one, whether it's Victor next year, Scoot next year, someone you trade for, someone in 2024, and then your second, third, fourth best players are Shea, Giddey, and Chet, like you're going to be a contending team.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of KOC, gave him a little hard time for his player comps to Usman, but he did say OKC might be his favorite young core in the NBA. Granted, looking at his big board, OKC took 3, I believe, of the top 15 players in his big board. So obviously he's a big fan there. But I see what you're saying, Nick, and I think you're correct. I do think more of these players will step up. I mean, we know Shea can do that. We can see Giddey taking a bigger role there. It's just fascinating. And maybe this is where we kind of start to dive into Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. I have to clarify, because I think he's one of those players. I mean, I know we just watched a little bit of film before before jumping into this podcast, but even just the limited research we did.
We watched him for the first time 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, we just watched him.
I am now an expert.
I am now an expert. He is going to be a superstar. He never misses a shot. It's insane. But no, he had a lot of hype coming out of the combine, right? And so I think what we know from him is I think he can be one of those guys who will need the ball or can score with the ball. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts on Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. To clarify,
I was so ready to be low on the Usman pick if that came, and then it didn't come, and we drafted Jalen Williams, and I was like, all right, I can deal with that. And then we took Usman anyway. So I feel better. Just to go back, I feel better about the Usman pick since we did not have to. We were still able to get a guy like Jalen Williams in addition to Usman. I like Jalen Williams the more. I obviously haven't seen that much. Seen about as much as you guys have of Jalen Williams at this point. I've liked the idea of him. I like everything that I've seen so far. I like what experts have to say about him. Super looking forward to seeing him at Summer League.
I think what is interesting here is, again, like the defensive side of things. Henry Abbott tweeted after the Thunder picked Jalen Williams number 1 that the Thunder got 3 potential defensive monsters in this draft. And I think like the high IQ piece is part of it, but like this team was already good in defense. Like look at their defensive rating last year, and you added Chet and potentials with Usman Dieng and Jalen Williams. That this team is gonna only get better on the defensive side of the ball, and that's kind of terrifying. And to the earlier point of like all you need at that point is a bucket getter. They've got a couple people that can score. They've got they can carry that load. But if you get that kind of like primary 1A scoring option, that's a pretty robust team that really kind of checks the boxes that you want a contending team to check. I think checks the boxes that Sam Presti tried to check in previous iterations of the Thunder with, that kind of like defensive prowess and scoring acumen. There's a path forward from what the Thunder have right now to get there that is not that far off.
I like that you brought up Henry Abbott's tweet, because Jacob, what was your tweet about the combined wingspan of the Thunder draftees?
Oh, I've got it somewhere here. Hold on.
Sorry, I should have looked it up before I brought it. Like
Total, the Thunder drafted 28 feet 9 inches of wingspan tonight.
It makes me uncomfortable. I picture like Chet Holmgren in a bird suit.
Hey, so you guys are talking about, they've got potential monsters defensively. Usman Dieng will not be 20 years old until after next season. His birthday is May 21st. He just turned 19. Like he is young. The Jalen Williams from Santa Clara is going to be 22 at the end of the season. Not as young, maybe more of a high floor type of guy. But we keep saying like, oh, they got all these great defensive guys. Now they really need the dude that can go get a bucket.
Yep.
Here's the thing. They just drafted 19, 20, and 21 and 21-year-olds. I think the hope is you don't have to go find the guy that can get a bucket, because one of these guys ends up being the guy that can get the bucket. And I'm low on Usman Dieng, I'll be honest. I can see the potential though, right? You kind of got to squint to see it. You got to tilt your head a little bit, but there's something there. I think, again, they just drafted a crazy amount of wingspan tonight. I think defensively, this team's going to take a step forward. And this is a team that whenever they were playing everyone last year, they were a top 12 defense in the NBA.
Yep.
Right. But I think we have
go ahead.
It just like on the point of find the guy who can create the bucket or can get you a bucket when it's needed. Again, this is a topic that we just don't have time to dive into tonight. And we'll have all the time in the offseason to dive into it. But what does this say about how highly Presti thinks of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
Yeah.
What if he's that guy?
And or Trey Mann.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Trey Mann a lot during this process, Kamiar.
Yep.
Okay, we've talked about Usman quite a bit here, the guy the Thunder took at 11. Let's talk about the very next pick as Mando makes an appearance on the pod. Let's talk about the very next pick. Pick number 12, Jalen Williams, number 1 out of Santa Clara.
Mm-hmm.
6'7".
Same conference as Gonzaga.
Yeah,
Yep.
he and Chet have been working out this whole pre-draft process together.
Same
They share the same agent.
How convenient.
Share the same agent. Jalen Williams, 6'6", with a 7'2" wingspan.
Woo!
The Thunder drafted nobody that has less than 7 feet of wingspan tonight. I think that's fascinating and probably intentional.
This man can tie his shoes standing up.
No crap, dude. And this dude has some sauce. Like his ability to create for himself. He's got some bounce. He's got a nice looking stroke from 3, shot nearly 40% on the year.
Catch and shoots were awesome.
Yeah, I think we were checking some of the stats before we got on the podcast. 48% catch and shoot 3-point shooter.
Yep.
That'll do.
48% catch and shoot when you're joining a team that has Shai, Josh Giddey, Chet, and we just talked about how good of a passer Usman Dieng is. This kid's going to get nothing but catch and shoots in the league.
Yep.
It was actually 49.3, I think.
Wild.
Even better.
And like
even better.
Like Trey
Tomato,
Mann,
tomato.
Trey Mann has like all the sick moves, right? Like it's weird to see his ankle go almost like parallel to the ground on a step back. That's stupid.
They are sick.
But Jalen Williams, he's not that type of guard. But he definitely him in the pick and roll is really, really nice. He's got size. He is a great defender, and those catch and shoot splits are just stupid from the corners. You just like again, OKC's adding shooting. Chet is a shooter. Chet has good percentages. And of course, he's said openly he wants to be in the 50-40-90 club. And
I concur. I would also like that.
yeah, that would be amazing. I would love that. But I'm happy. I was really happy with Jalen when he was drafted. My biggest thing was if Presti stays pat, doesn't deal Lou, and picks at 12. I want him to nail number 12, and I was really happy with what I got at 12.
I think what's important to note is with both of these picks, Usman and Jalen Williams, I think Presti got his guy. There was a lot of fluidity in the middle of this draft. Everybody talked about it of kind of once you got out of the early lottery, this draft just really kind of opened up, and there was a lot of variance in opinion. That as much as we talked about the Thunder trading up, I think Presti felt like he didn't have to and rather traded in. I think that's what's interesting considering Dieng. Jacob, you kind of were joking when you said how has your opinion changed on Dieng in the last 2 hours? Part of what changes my opinion on Dieng is the fact that Presti thought he was worth 3 draft picks. To me, that says more than anything any tape could say, because Presti's not going to make that move lightly. Similarly with Jalen Williams, if he's staying pat at 12, he got Dieng, and this is who he wanted. He didn't feel like he had to trade up to get somebody else. I feel good about that. Does this part of the draft have a lot more variance? Absolutely. Am I guaranteeing that both of these guys turned into, super awesome NBA players just because Sam Presti picked them? No, it doesn't. You don't have to go that far back in the draft to see misses with Darius Bazley or Terrence Ferguson or guys like that. He doesn't always hit, but I think that the fact that he wanted him and spent to get Dieng and didn't trade up and took Jalen Williams, I think that says something. Because unlike the years where they took Darius Bazley or Terrence Ferguson, those years they didn't have the ability to change their pick very much. This year they did, and this is who they chose, and I think that says a lot.
What do you think? What do you think happens on tonight's draft if Dieng isn't taken at 11 and he's sitting there at 12?
And the Thunder don't make a move?
Yeah.
I think they take him at 12.
That's a really interesting.
I totally agree, but what do you think?
Trade up to try and get Williams out of
Nick, I was just thinking this. Justin, you bring up an incredible point that Presti didn't trade 3 first rounders because he was like, oh, screw it. We'll take a swing on this guy.
Right.
It's that's my guy.
Yep.
I want that guy. I am ready to spend for that guy. And then I don't think he just said, well, screw it. We got pick 12 too.
Right.
He said that it's the meme, the why not both? That's what Presti did tonight.
Exactly.
Right? Why make a decision on one of those 2 guys when you can get both of them?
Yep.
And we also know there were multiple teams linked to Dieng. He was rising up, quote unquote, rising up draft boards. This is where you can kind of start to use those reports and start to piece them together. We know Cleveland, they acquired an additional second rounder earlier before the draft started today. They were highly connected to Dieng, obviously trying to trade up to get him. I know the Spurs were thinking about him potentially at pick 9. They ended up going Sohan. I think there were a lot of teams that were interested in him. And this was, again, Presti's op. That might be why some people might think this was a bit of an overpay. If those other offers aren't on the table, if this is a Poku situation, maybe Presti doesn't have to give up 3 protected first round picks, right? But to Justin's point, you do that, A, because you have the luxury, B, because other teams are wanting him, C, because you took advantage of the Knicks, who were in a position needing those picks to make other moves, and you're still able to get your other guy and Jalen Williams at pick 12, which I do find interesting that his agent is also Bill Duffy. I didn't realize that until you said that, Jacob. Yep. That's fascinating.
Last thing on Dieng, and then let's move on. Let's finish talking about Jalen Williams 1, so we can go talk about Jalen Williams 2. Dieng is by far the youngest guy they drafted tonight. I think we are all in agreement that he is the most raw prospect they drafted tonight. They also drafted 4 rookies tonight. They currently have 19 players on roster. They're going to have to make some cuts.
20.
20 players on roster. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
now
we
that-
got
It
cuts
is
coming.
official.
Yep.
Where does Usman Dieng play more games at next season? Thunder or Blue?
I was thinking blue. I was thinking that they're going to be teams they're going to be players that are going to stick with the organization and be sent to the blue for the entire year. I think Jang's 100% blue. I think he's by far the most raw prospect OKC has right now. I always throw out of the ones that they've signed, right?
I
Do we know-
agree. I was thinking blue as well, but like where
He'll
I
play
get-
Thunder minutes.
right, and
But
also
I think he'll spend
yeah,
most
yeah,
of his
yeah,
time with the
yeah.
Blue.
but end of the season, right? That's where I think it could get
Oh,
a little interesting.
Possibly. Justin,
What-
what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, do we know like how many games? I'm looking it up. I was just gonna be lazy. I'm looking up like how many games did Poku spend in the G League last year versus NBA? Because for me, I think it'll be somewhat similar. To where I think they're gonna be okay getting him some NBA experience. Maybe it's closer to Poku's first season than last season, potentially. Last season, Poku played 11 games with the Blue.
I think it's going to be more than that for Dieng.
25, 30? More?
I would imagine 25 Blue games for him.
Yeah. 11 is honestly less than I thought in my head when I went to look it up.
It felt like a
Me
lot
too.
longer.
Yeah.
The point being, like maybe closer to Poku's first season. Get him a good healthy G League stint, but I think they're going to put him out there, and especially at the latter half of the season. I'm not saying they're going to go all in and tank again, but I'm not saying that. And putting Usman Dieng in a heavy rotation position is probably a pretty good way to do that.
and a little more stealthy than previous seasons. I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, like again,
We're developing
I'm
them.
not
We're
leaning into
developing.
the conspiracy that they're faking injuries, but like barring some drastic injuries, give Usman Dieng 30 minutes a night and you're going to lose some ball games.
Yep.
I think he plays more than you think. Thunder,
Okay.
30 minutes.
Especially with
I could
Baisley
see
gone.
him. I could see him being a guy that constantly rotates between the Thunder and the Blue. That a guy that's getting in a ton of games. I could see as much as he sticks with the Blue, as much as I could see that as much as he sticks with the Blue. Either one. I don't think there's like really much of an in between.
I definitely think he kind of got along the same line of thinking as you all. I think first half of the season, like pre All-Star break, mostly in the Blue. If he plays for the Thunder, I think it's going to be like 10 minutes in garbage time, something like that. But second half of the season, especially depending on the Thunder's record and kind of what their trajectory is at that point in the season, you could see his minutes tick up quite a bit.
All right. Any more thoughts on Santa Clara's Jalen Williams before we move on? I think we talked about the spot shooting is going to be incredible. The ability to kind of create his own shot. He doesn't have a lot of like. I think it was Taylor that said this. He doesn't have a lot of quick twitch athleticism,
But it has some explosion.
but has some explosive athleticism. He can rise above the rim. He's especially going to the basket. He's got some really funky, unique style finishes that are Shea-esque. These like long, leaning finger rolls. These the going off the dribble, never collecting the dribble, and just going straight from a dribble to a lefty scoop. These really unique finishes at the cup that I think are really fun.
So global scouting, probably my last thoughts on Jalen Williams. Santa Clara, Jalen, have to clarify, ranks in the 90. This is from May 26, around the combine time. Ranks in the 97th percentile on spot ups. Ranked in the 87th percentile as a cutter. 86th percentile as PNR ball handler. We talked a little about that pre-pod. Us three ranks in the 86th percentile on floaters at the rim. You just talked about that, Jacob. And then ranks in the 83rd percentile in transition, which, like I keep saying, that's when this team is at their best.
Take out the PNR ball handling.
Because you won't have to do that.
Everything else fits like a glove. The spot shooting, the cutting, the transition. When you've got a guy like Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the court with you, that is exactly the type of player you need. This is just straight up hand in the glove. It fits.
You can have some really fun lineups, I think, next season with plugging in Jalen Williams, like Shea, Trey Mann, Jalen Williams, Giddey, Chet. Like, that's a blast.
I just had this is an epiphany, but a thought. It's a rare one at midnight after we've been literally on a show for 5 hours and a radio hit earlier. It's a little bit of Kenrich Williams in him. Spot shooter, can handle a little bit in a pinch, can get out in transition, cuts really well. I'm not saying like he's a Kenrich
underselling
replacement.
Jalen Williams a lot.
Well, I'm just saying like the style of play.
So I mentioned this to you guys earlier as well, but
Juiced up, Kenny.
KOC says shades of TJ Warren and OG Anunoby. And OG is a fun one.
If he becomes OG
He's a little
Anunoby,
small for OG.
if he becomes OG
he's not
Anunoby,
small.
you've
Good night.
literally hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Let's move on to pick 34, Jalen Williams out of Arkansas. Jalen Williams, 2 of 2. The other one was number 1 of 2.
The rare Jalen Williams eclipse. You don't see those very often.
First off, my first question, how the hell are we going to differentiate these two? And how the hell are we going to get Michael Cage to differentiate these two?
Prayers up for Michael Cage, Chris Fisher, and Matt Pinto tonight. That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Dude, I'm just ready for the triple Williams lineup.
Shout out to in our draft live stream earlier, Kerry Cicero coined the phrase 3 Willie.
Oh, we've already tweeted the image. Have you not seen it yet?
And then DM'd us a
Okay.
picture of it. So go check that out because it's
so awesome.
glorious. 3 Willie is fabulous. This one's interesting because we started talking about this on our live stream as well. Of like he had a potential if he came back to school to like be one of the top players in the SEC to potentially help his draft stock and become a little bit more valuable next year. And I think Presti kind of sees that opportunity of like a buy low moment, get him in your system, develop him instead of playing another year of college ball, like get him in the Thunder facility, let him play in the G League, let him play in the NBA, get around these guys and see what you can do with them.
OKC's a big fan of that, Justin. All the way back to Porzingis. Getting a guy a year early. I didn't realize Jalen Williams was that young until I literally just Googled him. He's younger than Usman. By
wild.
about a month.
That's wild.
Guy.
We have the same birthday.
Oh wait, no, I have that backwards. I'm sorry. He's older than a month. He will turn 20 5 days from now.
We have the same birthday.
Wait, so he's 11 months or
he's 11 months older.
Yeah. Okay, got you.
Usman Dieng just turned 19 a month ago. Jalen Williams turns 20 in 5 days.
There you go.
I had it backwards. Apologies. Still, that's really young. My first thought with this pick, forward, bouncy, can block shots, 6'10", another wide wingspan. We talked about a roster crunch earlier because they got 20 guys on roster. You ready for this?
Oh, he's a Roby replacement.
Let it rip. Let it rip.
He's the Derek Favors replacement because they're about to buy him out.
Ooh, there it is.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Keep Mike Muscala as the vet.
Yep.
Mike Muscala is the perfect Chet whisperer.
Never let him go.
They're both from Minnesota. Mike Muscala and Chet. It's perfect.
Love it.
You go ahead and you ship off Derek Favors and Jalen Williams the second assumes this position.
I like it. I like it a lot.
There's not much of a position to assume in Favors' place, but I get what you mean. His roster spot for sure.
He's assuming the position of the Favors chalk outline on the pavement.
It's just so interesting because like the way the league is now, in comparison to the way the league was, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, right? I mean, 10 years ago, you're looking at, you have a big, like a legitimate, like maybe 5 and 4. And then you hit the Splash Bros era, which spurs on what happens in Houston with everything just 3-and-D. Yeah, just like all that crazy stuff.
Someone's doing a scouting report right now.
I gotta know which Jalen Williams you're watching right now.
It was me watching Arkansas one earlier. But it's interesting because like there are no real stretch fours anymore in the league. Remember, because like we went from having fives and bigger fours to then what's a stretch four? So now you only have like a big and that's like slightly mobile, and then you have a stretch four. Now those fours aren't even really stretch fours anymore. They're just bigger wings.
Yeah.
And
Good
so
point.
like Kevin Durant tweeted this out tonight, actually, and he's right. It's a wings league. Like 2 through 4 doesn't matter anymore. And sometimes 1 through 4 doesn't even matter anymore. It's wild.
It's very fair. Anybody else have Arkansas Jalen Williams thoughts?
I wish I had some. Wish I had more. I wish I had anything.
Better,
I'm just
good passer for his position.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Takes
saw
a
him
lot of
play.
charging.
I saw him play when OU beat them this past season, over in Tulsa, I think. He is good. I mean, that OU team was all right. I mean, they weren't anything to brag about, but he definitely looked way better than what OU was putting on the floor when they were there and when they were on. So, I mean, he was a good college prospect, but I'm just curious to see what he's going to translate like to the NBA. Like you guys just said, you're shipping out Derek Favors and he's kind of taking a spot. And like now you have Darius Baisley who plays at 3 and 4. You got Poku playing at a 3, 4, 5. Chet playing at 4 or 5. You have a ton of dudes that they're positionless. Again, it's positionless basketball. You just happen to have one guy that usually brings the ball up the court. I left everybody speechless.
You did. Anybody else? Any thoughts on Jalen Williams from Arkansas? I think he's interesting. We'll see what he does. Nick, you mentioned earlier, not on the pod, that you questioned, is he a two-way guy? Where do you stand on that right now, Nick?
I think he should. Not that he's not good enough to play in the NBA next season, but I think for roster reasons, it makes sense. He's probably going to play in the G League a bunch anyways. Might as well stick him there, and that's 3 guys you got to worry about crunching instead of 4. And I think if you put him on a 2-way, there's 3 spots you got to figure out. Cut one of or trade one of Jermichael Green and Derek Favors, and then you just got to decide between Vit Roby, Teo, and Ty, and it's not hard to find 2 of those guys to kick out the door.
I'm with you. All right. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes now. It's been a long day. I want to close on some big thoughts. Okay. I'm just going to throw my stuff out there. I threw
It's been
together
a long day. I want to close on some really complex stuff. It's past midnight.
Here are my 4 bullet points. 1, what the hell happened? 2, how do we feel? 3, how does all of this fit together? And 4, what should we expect moving forward? So let's not all answer each one of those, but from what the hell happened, how do we feel about it? How does everything fit? And what does this look like moving forward? Let's get each person's kind of closing final draft night big thoughts on one of those things, a couple of those things, whatever, kind of our closing statements, if you will, because holy crap, we got a lot of content coming your guys' way. Tomorrow we'll be on call-in talking all about these prospects. Sunday we'll have a show, a regular podcast. Monday we'll have call-in. Next Wednesday we'll have a show. That's the 29th. Friday, July 1st, we'll have another call-in, and I believe that's the first Utah Summer League game. We're talking a week away, folks. The week after that, we will be out in Vegas for Summer League, bringing you guys all kinds of content. Like, it doesn't stop. This is kind of the tip of the iceberg. We got so much more crap coming your guys' way. So just some final ideas, thoughts, etc. from each of us before we log off tonight. Whoever wants to take the floor, go for it. Also, we have the Sixth Man Show, the Orlando Magic podcast that came on with us in the comments right now, which is awesome. Congrats on Paulo, guys. I know they were super excited about it. So cool to see them checking out the stream right now.
I guess I'll just go like to your bullet point about final thoughts or where's this heading. I sent this to you guys just now, but Joe Masato, the Oklahoman, he's there in person tonight doing fantastic work with these prospects and getting some in-person interviews. So we mentioned the Bill Duffy connection, right? Being the agent of both Chet and Jalen Williams, the Santa Clara Jalen Williams.
We really got to find a way to differentiate the two.
Pick 12 Jalen Williams, not pick 34 Jalen Williams. And he asked about the Thunder's.
Lotto Jalen.
Lotto Jalen. There, I like that.
I vote big man, 6'10", 250 Jalen is Big Willie.
Big Willie, Little Willie.
And then the other Jalen is just Jalen. I don't want to call him Little Willie. That feels offensive.
We're in a dark place now.
He's not very small. I mean, 6'6". Anyways, Uncontested After Dark. Anyway, so Joe has this interview where got to talk to Bill Duffy, and Duffy said about the Thunder's night, they're recalibrated and they're ready to turn it up. I think that last season might have been the bottom of the barrel, the valley, and we're about to start heading back uphill towards competition again.
I'm gonna go off a similar kind of not tangent, but similar like kind of way that Taylor's did. This team is pretty clear like what they're wanting. They want length, really tall, long guys that are multi-positional. They want guys that can shoot the basketball. That's not used to being the case. I mean, usually, anytime OKC would draft somebody or they would trade for somebody, you would hear they're raw and athletic, raw but really athletic, which meant he can't shoot. That equated that he can't shoot in everybody's brains. To see that how well of a 3-point shooter they're getting in Chet Holmgren, how well of a 3-point shooter they're getting in Jalen. And that's the Jalen from Santa Clara. I didn't look at the shooting splits from Williams from Arkansas. And so Nick's giving me a thumbs down. So sounds like a no-go. But also KC invests a little bit more long-term in a guy that, again, positionless basketball, is great at cutting, slashing, playmaker, tall, ball handling, etc. A bunch of guys that can do a lot of things for you, and you can teach them other things, and you're also getting them young, in some cases a year ahead, like they said for Arkansas, even though he still is going to be a little bit older than the guys when he would shape into form. But it's pretty clear to see what they're doing. They used to have specialists on the team, right? I mean, you would have KDB, the dude that did it all. You had Andre Robertson be the guy that D's up somebody, but that's it. You had an anchor at center that's, kind of weaving and bobbing and basically just doing what he should be doing in pick and roll situations on defense and setting screens. That's it. And the wings may or may not shoot very well at all. And now this iteration of the Thunder, there are lots of guys that can do several things, and several things for you very well. And to Nick's point, I think that OKC may still be searching for their Batman, or maybe that's Shea, and you'll see that come out in the next couple of years, and they may have already drafted their Robin. We have no idea. And Chet, but who knows? But it's pretty clear where they're heading and what direction they want to go in.
I'd say my big takeaway is that the Thunder and Sam Presti got the number one guy on their board. I think with the excitement of lottery night and getting, pick 2, it's easy to interpret that as like, okay, the Thunder get the second best player in the draft. But I think the flip side of that is just because another team wants them, or just because, the consensus analyst boards say this, doesn't mean Sam Presti views it that way. And I think, what Nick laid out earlier, I think is spot on. The fact that we had all this Jabari smoke and then it switched to Paulo, and the whole time Chet never wavered, means that if Thunder get pick 1, they're taking Chet. If Thunder get pick 3, they're taking Chet. They get pick 2 and they're taking Chet. That means last season enabled the Thunder to go get the number 1 guy that Sam Presti wanted to get. And that's huge. And then you got a guy in Usman Dieng, regardless of kind of like how you feel about him, that Presti wanted to go spend some draft capital on. That's huge too. In terms of like this rebuild, this feels like a milestone night because neither of those things happened last year. Sam Presti didn't get his number 1 guy. We heard talks about offers that were made for Evan Mobley, who I'd venture to say was probably Presti's number 1 guy. I'm sure Cade was up there, but like Mobley's up there as well. He didn't get either of them. He got Josh Giddey, who's great, but this is different and it feels different. We'll see if he hits, if he's right, if his board was correct. He's got a great track record. He's been right before. And I think that's what feels exciting about it. That's what makes it feel like this thing has turned a corner a little bit. We'll see how it plays out, but I think, Presti's track record, he's earned the benefit of the doubt on that front.
I'll be short and sweet. Oklahoma City now has 3 of their 5 long-term starters. They're over halfway there. And it took 2.5 years to get there.
Are they living on a prayer?
We expected 5 years, 6 years. So the timeline is like the rebuild is on track.
Yeah, I'll just say I'll keep it short. Also, I went in hoping Presti would allow the players to declare themselves, like he said. That was his goal, and he did that. He was opportunistic, and this roster now has positional flexibility, versatility at nearly every position. So I'm just pumped for next season.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway where this is going, I think we're starting to see a very clear line of what type of team they are wanting to build. And to me, that team looks like a defensive-minded, long team that is versatile, plays 5 out, and wants everybody that's on the court to be able to grab the ball off the rim after they get a stop. And there's no Steven Adams getting a rebound and outletting to Russell Westbrook. They don't give a shit who rebounds the ball. When you get it, you go. You've got Shea, you've got Josh, you've got Lou, you've got Trey, you've got Chet, you've got Jalen, you've got Usman. Whenever they start coming down the court, you've got 5, 6'6" or taller dudes pushing, filling lanes, filling to the corners. And shit, the 7-1 guy might be the one leading the break. They've kind of embraced this long, lanky, defensive, everyone can dribble, pass, shoot. And I think that's a very interesting team concept, but I think it is very clear to me now that that is the direction that they're going. Awesome. Hey, I don't even know how to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in ever since the lottery, tuned in tonight. Our draft live stream, which spanned 3 hours and 41 minutes, I never in my wildest dreams imagined we'd have that many people watching us live. That's insane.
Agreed.
And then
Super
it's
cool.
midnight right now. It's 12:20, and we've still got 130 people in the stream here just on YouTube right now. That's not counting Facebook. That's not counting Twitter. Just absolutely, absolutely insane. We really, really appreciate you guys. And like I mentioned, this is the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started. There's so much more coming your guys' way. They just got the guys. Now we get to cover them playing basketball. It's going to be an absolute blast. Hey, before we get out of here, got to mention the NBA draft, mock draft contest that we did. We got a winner.
Yes.
I know the winner on Twitter, so I'll reach out. Bryson McGowan is our winner. He won by 3 points. His final score was 110. Chet Skittles was 107. Jaden Lee, 23, was 100. So we had some pretty close ones there. But Bryson, we're going to get you a jersey of Jalen Williams or Jalen Williams or Usman Dieng or Chet Holmgren or whoever you want, really. We'll hook you up with that. Make sure to check out our store. We've got a ton of really cool new Chet gear. Probably give away some of that stuff too coming forward. We don't have built-in outro music, I don't think, for this pod. So we're just going to cut it here. Thank you guys so much. Follow us on all socials, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Also, go sign into the Callin app, make an account, follow us there, because we will be live tomorrow evening on Callin. You guys have a great Friday, the day after the draft. We'll have so much more coming your way, so keep it here with the Uncontested. Until then, and as always, Chet the freaking bed, man.